Well, when the court decides, would you follow the court's order, decision?
Pete Hegseth, the head of the Pentagon, and I'll trash the Democrats as well in this, but it's him before Congress saying he won't follow the law, which is kind of important for someone who runs the Pentagon. But
let's face it, it is not normal to call up our troops in this way, and there is active litigation against this deployment. Will you follow a court's order regarding whether or not this deployment is legal?
She's, of course, talking about sending military to California to fight against protesters when the state of California has not asked for the military, which hasn't been done since the 1950s and 60s.
But if the court says this deployment of troops into our cities is not legal, would you follow that court's order?
It's pending in the courts, Senator.
Well, when the court decides, would you follow the court's order, decision?
I don't believe district courts should be determining national security policy. I don't believe district courts should be determining national security policy.
I don't believe district courts should be determining national security policy.
So you will not be following that.
When it goes to the Supreme Court, we'll see.
Court. And unless the president decides to appeal, there you have it. So
So yeah, he basically said that it doesn't matter what the courts say, because I don't believe they should be speaking about anything the Pentagon does. To this, we have this little shred of a separation of powers left in the United States. It doesn't really exist. People think it exists far more than it does. But here you have the head of the Pentagon, the head of the U.S. war machine, saying even if a court says you can't send the military to a state without that state requesting it to arrest and wage war against Americans, Hegseth says, yeah, I don't believe that they should have any say on that. So it's pretty breathtaking admission. And of course, it's the fast track to fascism. Oh, you can just use the military in any state in the country you want to do whatever they want? Okay, cool. Now, the reason this largely hasn't mattered until now is because the ruling elite of this country are largely in lockstep. Good reference there, considering fascism. But largely in lockstep on the larger issues of the country, of national, quote unquote, national security, another bullshit euphemism, but they're largely in lockstep. So you don't normally have a lot of disagreement between the Pentagon and Congress, with the exception of a couple of congressmen here or there. You got occasionally Ron Paul used to speak out against the Pentagon, like Rand Paul sometimes. Like, you don't have much. And so normally the Pentagon never has to answer that question. Normally the courts are not even involved. And when they are, they're going to agree with whatever the Pentagon's doing. So most of the time it hasn't really mattered. But here you have the admission of the ruling human at the Pentagon saying, I don't really care what the courts say. We have bigger guns. Well, that does it, right? That becomes a martial rule. It becomes the Pentagon ruling the country. Now, behind closed doors, they already kind of do. Like, the ruling elites, a tiny number of oligarchy, are pulling the strings, and it doesn't matter what you vote for. We don't have say in things. We don't have say in whether we go to a war with a war in Iran. 60% of Americans say we should not be involved in Iran. Doesn't matter. There's no democracy on these actions. Most Americans want to, at minimum, see a ceasefire in Gaza, meaning Israel stop bombing and killing Gazans, and they want to see an end to the famine and the starvation. Even if they don't seem to care a lot about the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, they want to see those things. Doesn't matter. There's no voting on this. There's no democracy. The idea that we have a democracy on these matters is just laughable.